whenever you're ready.
We're starting. Okay, I want to dedicate today's shiur in honor of the grandfather, who's passing is tonight. Harab Yehuda Tzvi ben Ramesh Yaakov al Shalom. Should be schusay. Shem Shalom Aliyah. Should be good to better on behalf of all the family for all good. L'chaim.
Don't mind me, I'm going to have to go back inside.
No problem.
So prefacing you.
Okay.
Yo, you rocked up today?
So leave the plate there by myself. You put it away by myself.
Baruch Hashem. All right. We're approaching the day of the Rebbe, which is this coming Sunday, Gimel B'Tammuz.
באמת?
And
שזה גם יום האב.
your father?
לא, זה יום האב באמריקה, זה מעניין, לא? אבא ואבא.
Okay, Yom Ha'av is the Yom Shal Rebbe, Rebbe, Abba Shal Am Yisrael.
נכון.
Rebbe is a father of Jewish people, so it's very instinct that it's Father's Day. I didn't realize it was Father's Day, but it's very
לא
apropos.
חשבת על זה? אני נדלקתי.
So in Eli, you I wasn't sure what to talk about now. You just convinced me. You convinced me. I want to talk about something very powerful, very special, and very relevant to all of us. Something that will give us happiness and calm and direction in the midst of adversity, in the midst of pettiness and small-mindedness. Something which will give us some strength and direction. There is a line in this week's Torah portion which stands out. Moshe Rabbeinu, he is challenged by Korach. Korach says that he should be leader of the Jewish people instead of Moshe. He gathers together 250 people, not just people, 250 leaders, 250 Roshei Sanhedrin, 250 top rabbis, and they all come together to Moshe Rabbeinu. They say to him, Moshe Rabbeinu, time's up. You've taken the lead role for yourself, for your brother. This is really wrong. And we think you made this all up. And Korach instead says, I should be the leader of the Jewish people, not you. That's what happens in this week's Torah portion. And the rest of the Torah portion, Moshe Rabbeinu proves that he is indeed chosen by God. And the main characters that challenged Moshe Rabbeinu weren't actually Korach. The main characters were these two brothers who always challenged Moshe Rabbeinu every step of the way. In fact, when Moshe Rabbeinu recounts later in Dvarim who challenged him, he doesn't mention Korach, he mentions Datan v'Aviram. Who are Datan and Aviram? These people it's hard to understand there could be people like this. It sounds like something which is from a dream. But these people had such hatred, it seems, to Moshe Rabbeinu, and did such terrible things. For over 60 years, they tormented him. And yet what happens is, when they first challenge Moshe Rabbeinu does something which is incredible. He says, I want to go talk to them, maybe I can convince them, maybe we could talk together and I could convince them. Now, to understand why that's so fascinating, let's go back a little bit, and let's look at a little bit of the history of Datan Aviram. Moshe Rabbeinu was raised in the palace of Paro, and when he first comes out of the palace to see his brothers at the age of 20, he sees an Egyptian man beating a Jewish man. Moshe Rabbeinu says the name of God, and the Egyptian man is killed. Then Moshe Rabbeinu sees two Jewish men fighting with each other, and he tells them to stop fighting. And one of the men says to the other, or says to Moshe, are you going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian? And he actually went to the Paro, and he told Paro, this guy killed the Egyptian, and because of him, Moshe Rabbeinu had to hide for 4 decades to leave Egypt, 60 years actually, until he came back to, so he had to leave for 60 years because he was chased after Paro made a decree of death against Moshe Rabbeinu because of what he did. Who were those two people that were fighting? They were Datan v'Aviram. What were they fighting about? Unbelievable. Listen to this. Moshe Rabbeinu saw the Egyptian man beating a Jew. Who was the Jew he was beating? And just like in Nazi Germany, there were capos, that they had the Jewish men who were tasked with controlling the ghetto and controlling the other Jews. So too in Egypt, the Paro had also Jews who were in charge of making sure that everyone did their job. Datan v'Aviram were part of those people. They were part of the Jews who made others work. And Datan, one day, he was woken up by the Egyptian taskmaster. He woke him up, and he said, "Get up all your 10 Jews to go work. Go get out and go get your people out. Get your group together." He goes out. The Egyptian rapes the Jew's wife. Her name was Shlomit Bat Ivri. And when the Jew came back, he right away realized what had happened. And the Egyptian was embarrassed that he was discovered what he did. He decided to beat the Jew to death. So Moshe Rabbeinu saw the Egyptian beating the Jew. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he looked all directions, and he says the name of God, and the Egyptian dies. So how did Datan and Aviram know that Moshe Rabbeinu killed the Egyptian? Because these two people were fighting. Moshe Rabbeinu, what were they fighting about? Datan and Aviram, why were they fighting? And how did they know? If it says in the Torah that he looked all around and he saw there's no one around. The answer is Datan was the one who was being beaten by the Egyptian. It was his wife that was being beaten, but that was raped. And what were they arguing about? Datan wanted to divorce his wife because of what had happened. Because she was raped, he wanted to divorce his wife. And Aviram, his brother, was like, "You can't do that, that's wrong." Aviram was the brother of Shlomit, Datan's wife. How could they be a brother? Because Shlomit was from the tribe of Dan, but Datan and Aviram were brothers from the same father, two different mothers, and the same mother was also the mother of Datan was also the mother of Aviram. So Aviram was a brother-in-law of Datan. So Datan wanted to divorce Shlomit, and when he wanted to, Aviram goes over to him and says, "You can't do this to my sister, you have to stay married to her." So what is the reward Moshe Rabbeinu gets for saving their lives? The reward he gets is they go to Paro and say, "You have to kill Moshe Rabbeinu." And he has to run away for 60 years. 60 years later, what happens then? Moshe Rabbeinu comes back to Egypt. And these two guys are, again, they're bent on destroying and attacking with such hatred to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he tells Jewish people, it's time to leave Egypt, right? And he does all the miracles, and everyone's astounded. They see Kriyat Yam Suf, they come to the Yam Suf. What happens to get to the Yam Suf? Did everybody join them? Not everybody.
No.
Datan and Aviram said, "We're not going. This guy is this crazy stuff. We're going to join Paro. We're going to join Paro. We're going to join the Egyptian army right now. We're going to attack the Jews. We're going to go with the Jews, with the Egyptians, to attack the Jews." That's why the Torah says, "V'amar Paro l'mnei Yisrael nevuchim ein bar." It says in the Torah, Paro said to the Jews that the Jews were lost in the desert. Who was he talking to? So Rav Diskin says that he was talking to Datan and Aviram, who stayed, and they were intent on destroying and attacking the Jewish people with the Egyptians. So when the Torah says that they crossed the Yam Suf, who crosses the Yam Suf? The Jews crossed the Yam Suf. It says the water was on their right, the water was on their left. Then the Torah repeats it again. The water was on their right, the water was on their left. Why does the Torah repeat this again? Because there were two Jews that weren't there before. Datan and Aviram weren't there before. They were the Egyptians. After the water came down on the Egyptians, Datan and Aviram crossed the Yam Suf. Hashem split the Yam Suf just for them. So these people who were so full of hatred didn't stop. When they crossed the Yam Suf, they need to eat. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to bring the bread from heaven. The bread from heaven comes down. You guys, nothing to worry about. Bread from heaven, it's the best bread you could possibly imagine, or you can't even imagine. And just one rule. The rule is, don't leave over any of this bread till the next day. And it will not fall down on Shabbat. Datan and Aviram were intent on proving that he was wrong. So they took out the bread and they spread it out on Shabbat. And they say, "Oh, it fell on Shabbat. Look, it fell on Shabbat." And the miracle happened. The birds came and ate the bread, whatever. But Datan and Aviram, they did everything against Moshe all this time. So why was he so, if you will, naive to think he's going to talk to them and convince them to stop their argument against him? The whole being of Datan and Aviram was all to destroy Moshe, all to attack him. Now they had a coalition to go and to attack Moshe Rabbeinu. You would think at this time was the last time, that the last chance, the last possibility that they would change their mind. They full of hatred anyways. It's even more. The Maharal says that Datan and Aviram were created in order to oppose Moshe Rabbeinu. He says that there were two brothers, Moshe and Aaron, and the two brothers, Datan and Aviram. And Hashem makes by every person someone who is sort of like your nemesis, says the Maharal. Everyone has, you have a mission to do in life, And someone who is there stands up against you sometimes to challenge you because you have something really important to do. The Arizal actually says something similar, but the opposite, which is helpful for where we're going. The Arizal says if you see somebody who is always arguing with you, you know what that means? All Jews are brothers. All Jews are brothers. But in Shamayim, in heaven, just like it says about a husband and a wife, the two halves of one soul. If someone's always starting up with you, that means your tikkun, the way you rectify your soul specifically is with that guy who's always fighting with you.
Wow.
So Datan Aviram, they similarly, don't worry, you'll take care of it, Ellie. It'll be okay. So Datan Aviram, they're so full of hatred. And so the question is, what is Moshe Rabbeinu thinking when he says, I'm going to go and talk to them and convince them, I'm going to make them calm down? These guys are so full of hate. Their whole life is about destroying Moshe Rabbeinu. And now I'm going to talk to them, I'm going to convince them. What was he thinking? So the answer is like this. First of all, we have to understand who Moshe Rabbeinu is. Moshe Rabbeinu was the Rosh Bnei Yisrael. He was the head of the Jewish people. And because he was the head of the Jewish people, he felt things and saw things in a much deeper way than we can. Just like we were talking about last week about Ayin Tov, about a good eye. He was gifted, Moshe Rabbeinu was gifted to be able to see beneath the surface and see things that we cannot see. In the end of Parshat Shemot, the Torah says that Paro was Moshe and Aaron come to Paro. They tell Paro that Hashem has said that the Jewish people should be given freedom. Bnei B'chari Yisrael, the Jewish people are my children. Hashem says, let them out. So what does Paro say? Paro says, from now on, you guys are talking about leaving Egypt. From now on, till now, you had straw. From now on, no more straw, right? So Datan Vaviram, who were the two capos, so they were in charge of making everyone work, they went to Paro and they said, what do you want from us? We can't handle this. We can't beat the Jews to do more work than they can. It's impossible. Till now they were given straw and they had to make the bricks, and it was still almost impossible. Now out the straw, how could you expect that? Right. So Datan Vaviram, it says in the Torah, the Anashim Nitzavim, they stood up to Paro and they challenged Paro. So although there were people who were so full of cruelty and so low, they still had something in them that made them go out and challenge Paro. So Moshe said, I know who these guys are. I know they may be they're actually terrible ways, but they have something good in them. They couldn't stand to see Jewish people being beaten. And that is something that we see in our Rebbe. The Rebbe, I'll tell you one story. There's an organization called Aleph. You've probably heard of Aleph. Aleph is an organization that helps people in prison. Chabad helps people throughout the United States, throughout the world, people in prison or other unfortunate circumstances. Their motto is no Jew alone, no one alone, no one for God. So in 1998, 99, there was two Chabad boys who went to Daytona from Miami to go to visit a Jew. There was a certain Jew who was at his birthday, and they were given permission to go to his, he was in unusual kind of circumstance. He wasn't allowed to be with other inmates, but some kind of solitary confinement or something. But they were given permission to go put on film with him. Okay. They go put on film with him. And then they would drive back to Miami. They're driving back to Miami. It's a long ride. It's a few hours from Daytona to Miami. They're running out of gas. And it was before there was, GPS and all this kind of stuff. And it's getting late at night. And these guys, they don't know what to do. They thought they had enough gas, and they're stuck. And they're arguing, what should we do? Should we go all the way till we can't go anymore? And they start to cry. They're so afraid. In the middle of the night, they're on this lone road. Like, what are we going to do over here? And they decide they're going to keep on driving. They'll drive until they can't drive anymore. And they drive and they drive and they drive until, at the last second, they arrive at this exit. They go off the exit. And off the exit, they have there's a sort of like a mom and pop gas station, like a regular gas station, mom and pop gas station, and it's closed. So, but they're stuck. So they knock on the door. Please help us. They're so emotional. They're so broken. Like they're stuck over there, middle of the night, 10 o'clock at night. And one guy gets out of opens a window, starts screaming at them. You guys, I'm up from 4 o'clock in the morning. Come back tomorrow. Like, please, gotta help us. Just for a second. Not a second, it's a half hour to open this and to open that. Leave me alone. They beg him. Okay, he comes down. He opens up the turns on the lights, and gets the gas running, and he looks at the boys, and he says to them, "You guys are Jewish?" He's like, "Yeah." "Can you come with me to my house for a minute?" So they're like, they don't know why.
Why?
But they did.
They did.
The guy could have killed them, He was so angry at them. So they go to this house, and they go into the house, and this boy, this man screams out, "His dad! They've come to get you! They're here!" What? They come to get you? The boys, these Chabad was looking at each other. What do you mean they come to get him? What is he talking about? So this old man is it's already 11, 12 o'clock, and this old man is sitting there, and he looks at these boys and says, "Who are you guys? What are you doing here?" I said, "We're from Aleph, and we came here to go to Daytona to put on film with someone." "You came here to put on film with someone? So how long will you meet this guy for?" 10 minutes. 10 minutes? For what? Put on film with him. So you drove for 2 hours there, 2 hours back to put on film with him? Yeah.
Wow.
The Rebbe taught us that every Jew is important, and one mitzvah, as you can imagine the value of a mitzvah. So that's why we're here. When they said that, all of a sudden this guy's eyes turned to faucets and just started crying and crying. He says, he rolls up his sleeve. He's a Holocaust survivor. He says that 60 years ago, I looked just like you guys. But I saw, he says, Chonel Itzlan, he says he saw how the Nazis shot his wife and his daughters and his father. So I don't know what if he saw, meaning Hashem. If he didn't see, if he saw, if he didn't see, I don't want to know anything about it. So what did I do? After the war, I didn't want to be in Europe, with the Jews war, where my whole town, where I want to go away from God. So I decided to go to New York. But New York, they're also Jews. So I figured I'd go to Florida. I went to Miami. It's also Jews in Florida. So I went over here in this middle of the nowhere place, so that, here is where I'll be, and I won't have to see any Jews. One day, he says, it's midnight, and he's watching cable television. He's watching cable television, he's flipping the channels, he's bored, and he passes by, in the channels, a Farbrengen of the Rebbe. The Rebbe's talking in Yiddish. He sees someone talking Yiddish. Yiddish is a forgotten language. He knows Yiddish. He talked to his daughters in Yiddish, but he hasn't spoken Yiddish in decades and decades. Here, this rabbi is talking Yiddish, and a rabbi with a beard is talking Yiddish. They shocked him. He thought Yiddish was already gone. No one does it anymore. And the Rebbe is speaking about how lo yidach men nidach, how no Jew will be left aside. How every Jew we brought, when a Sheikh will come, every single Jew will come to Eretz Yisrael. Every Jew will come to Yerushalayim. Everyone will do teshuvah. And he's so shocked by this, he's so touched by this, he can't fall asleep. The next morning, his kids wake up, they have a little breakfast together every morning. He tells his kids, "Listen, I want to tell you guys something. I'm Jewish, and I watched this rabbi last night talking on television in Yiddish. I can't believe it was on television. Like, you must have been dreaming, Dad, it's impossible." So I wasn't dreaming, I saw it clear. And he said that he says this guy is a prophet talking about the future. And he says that the Messiah is going to come, and every Jew is going to be gathered to Israel. So I want to tell you guys that one day I'm going to have to go. When they go, I'm going to have to go with them. So he told this to his son. So his son he saw these bachrim, he saw these boys that he described them. They're up in a hat, and he had a beard, and they must have come to take his dad. So that's what he said. He said, "Yeah, that's what my son thought when he saw you." Anyways, they sat with him, they put on film with him. Next day, and they kept a connection with him. He passed away shortly afterwards. Point is that there are different ways of looking at people, different ways of looking at events, different ways of looking at and we really are very affected by the way we define ourselves, the way we define people, and there's only so far that our eyes could see. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu, no one knew where he was buried. Why does no one know where he was buried? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was buried in every single Jew. Every single Jew is meant to have the same kind of vision, like Moshe Rabbeinu, and to look at other people, and never say never. There are people that you have a machloket with, an argument for years and years and years, but you never, or especially true with the husband and wife, you never say never. You may have tried again and again and again, and you say, "Oh, I should even try again." Moshe Rabbeinu is looking at Datan Aviram, but Moshe doesn't see Datan Aviram. Moshe Rabbeinu sees in them that there's something that no one else could see. He knows it's there. Imagine, I'll leave you guys with one thought, let you guys go. Imagine if Eitan tells you that his parents buried this treasure in a certain island, okay? And they buried the treasure there. And Eitan said, "Come with me, and we'll give you a piece of the action. I just need some guys to help me dig, and we'll give it out after we find it." So you're very excited. You go with Eitan to the island, and you're searching. After the day passes, you're like, "Eitan, tabatuach. So you're sure it's over here?" I'm sure. A week passes of digging, and you don't find anything. Every day, how do you feel? Every day you feel confused, waste of time. Is it really there? But let's say you knew 100% it was there. Let's say you knew 100%. Every day, be more and more excited and getting closer and closer and closer to the treasure. That's how it's tzaddik. That's how Moshe Rabbeinu sees a Jew. He knows that there's a treasure there. It's for sure there's a treasure there. There's no question. And as we're approaching Gimel Tammuz, the day of the Rebbe, we have to think about how the Rebbe looks at each of us, realize the good that we have inside of us, that it's there, and think about how we could bring this out in others as well, how we could look for it and to be patient, to dig until we find it, until we see Mashiach Tzidkeinu. We'll find it all, build a shofar, and that goodness will be revealed in every single Jew. L'chaim, l'chaim v'rachim.